Hello, Ace Mid-Atlantic. I'm excited to come back to you again with another video featuring a Mid-Atlantic industry from the amusement parks. I am here today for Jeepers It's Winter with Jack Reimer from CoasterDynamix. You might know this company from all this great models that are showing up in so many amusement parks that you can build at home. And haven't those been a great thing to express your enthusiasm for coasters while safe at home? Period. I know my family has built a lot of nanocoasters. So we're going to talk about that and what else CoasterDynamix has going on a little bit today. So Jack, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks, Elizabeth. This is fun. I like this.
It is. It's nice to get to connect even though we can't all see each other as we normally would. So, like I mentioned, CoasterDynamix is nanocoasters, but that's not what you started with. We knew you initially as building the CDX block models to enable us to build our own coasters at home. But it seems like nanocoasters have been a niche of the market that really exploded for you.
Yeah, I mean, nanocoasters, it's really taken off. And during the pandemic, I think it's interesting because while the parks were closed, it forced the parks to open online stores. And with most of the parks that have an online store, we were the only brand that they sold that was up over the previous year, because there were plans for 2020 to have all these new nano coasters and they had to release them all online. So, people who were from California that wanted to, go to Cedar Point, or wanted to get a Cedar Point nano coaster couldn't do it. They had to go to the park. So they were able to get stuff, and it really helped us a lot. After initially we just thought, because we had all these nano coasters sitting in our warehouse ready to ship, and then the pandemic hit, and we sat on them for a long time until some of these places got their online sites up. And then once they did, it's just like, whew, they just went right through them. So plus people need things to do during the pandemic, I guess.
Exactly. And that's a great point, because there were nano coasters that you were wanting and couldn't get because you had to go to the park. You might not be able to get to that park to get the nano coaster you wanted.
Yeah. And I was just counting a minute ago. We have probably close to 20 that we're releasing this year. And we had, I think we had 4 or 5 last year that we had orders for that, it was 5 that we had orders for that just got canceled because of the pandemic, because the parks never opened, or, there was so much uncertainty. So we're hoping that we've talked to all those parks and they're just like, just hold on. So we're hoping that those come through, but it's about 20 with a lot of old rides that people are going to freak out when they see that we've done. And, I can't get into too many details about what we have coming with nano coasters, but it's going to be pretty awesome. And now these are all through the parks. Now, as far as what we sell on our site, I don't know. We've talked about a few, but we have to be really careful. We've done some that are just barely defunct, like Volcano and things like that. But the parks haven't really objected. So, and we don't really label them as, on the ride itself. We don't want to get in trouble and label it, but there's such a demand for some of these rides, and we just feel like we have to give people what they want.
Absolutely. How do you decide which ones to produce? Which one? What kind of
mostly the
process do you go
parks
through?
decide. The parks will tell us. So there's certain parks that are on board and they're just like, do everything we have. And they're the parks that have been with us for a while. They've seen how they sell. We have some parks that are very skeptical. They're like, well, let's just try one and see how it does. But the parks typically come to us and say, okay, these are the ones we want to do. Now for our own line, we just try and pick something that's really iconic that would have a broad appeal. Now, Volcano is pretty specific, but it's such a unique ride. We felt that would be a good one to do. We've talked about doing some older rides. We talked about doing like the Riverview Bobs, because when we used to go to we went to a hobby show in Chicago, everybody talked about the Riverview Bops. I'm like, just in Chicago, we should be able to sell a good number of them. But it gets harder for us to do the ones from our site because we can only really pick defunct or non-branded ones because we don't want to get in trouble with any parks or anything. And then, like we picked Great American Screen Machine to do, and then Six Flags decided they wanted to do it. So we had to pull it from our site and scrap all of them and then do it with Six Flags. But that, I mean, I'd much rather sell through the parks than from our site.
Definitely. It makes such a great partnership between the two of you. Now, tell me a little bit about your team. Who's on the team that makes this all happen?
So, Mike Graham is my business partner from Gravity Group, but he's busy building roller coasters, like real ones. So we talk occasionally, and if we get stuck on something, he's a great engineer, we'll ask his advice. But day to day, I have an engineer, his name's Dan Linden, and he does most of my engineering. And we've partnered with this line with Matt Schmatzer, he works for Ford up in Detroit, and he does roller coaster fun stuff on the side. He's the one that built the big Steel Vengeance model at Cedar Point. So he does the engineering or the design work on these. And then he's also worked on nanocoasters somewhat, So there's really two guys that do the bulk of the design work.
So you mentioned in front of you, these were new during the pandemic, correct? Or had you already started working on them a bit before?
No, this came together really fast. So Matt Schmatzer, who I mentioned, he had done a line of just nondescript cars, and they were made of laser cut wood. He had a laser in his workshop, and so he made them and he sold them on Etsy, and they glued together. And we knew about it. And we thought it was a really cool idea. And my engineer was just on me, like, we got to look into this. We got to partner with Matt. And I'm like, I don't want them to glue together. They have to press fit together because it's just not practical. People want to buy them and start building them. And if they don't have glue, then they have to go get glue. And people just don't build models like they used to. So, we kind of let it sit for a bit. And then, I decided that, so I got with Matt and I'm like, what do you think the chances are that you can make these so they press fit together? And he said, I think I can do that. So he bought some of the kits that were out there already that, are laser cut wood kits that press fit. And he was looking at that. And we came up with, he worked with Dan, and they came up with a tab system. And we standardized all our tabs so that everything tabs together with basically the same style of tab, and they work really well. And one of the things you have to worry about with this wood is the wood varies in thickness, it varies in hardness, so you have to have a tab that sort of compensates for these variations. So once we got that down, we were like, let's take this idea. And I remember I went to one of the parks. I said, hey, I have this new concept. And I said, would you like to see it? And they're like, we're not bringing in anything for 2020. We've blown our budget, pandemic year and everything. So I said, well, let me send you a picture. So I sent a picture, and his next email was, how soon can we get these? I'm like, wait a minute. He said he couldn't get. And everybody pretty much had the same response. Like all the parks that were like, yeah, we can't do anything till 2021 at the earliest. They all brought them in like immediately. So we bought a laser, and then we bought another laser. We already had 2 lasers, and now we bought like a 3rd laser, which will be here next week. And it's just exploded. It's really exploded. And it's all Matt's concept, but it's great how everybody we've worked together with him on making it a little more user friendly, we brought it to the masses. We had the connections at the parks. Dan had the experience, you know, working with all of the CDX block stuff on how things should fit. And Matt had the concept, and I mean, he just designs these things. They're just brilliant. And it's like this really good combination that, you know, and I think you're going to see a lot more of these. I know you will, because I know what's coming.
Ooh, a little bit of insight for us. So these coaster cutouts that you have in front of us, tell us what they're models of.
Well, this one is Volcano. Whoops. That one's available on our site. This is El Toro. This is just an invert, a B&M invert, and a B&M hyper that we sell on our site. This is a PTC, and then there's Millennium Force over here. And then this one, this is Dueling Dragons that we sell as a train. We also sell just the front car. And I mean, this thing it's pretty big.
It is massive. I'm just amazed at how large it is. And it's
yeah,
beautiful.
You know, it comes in a box like just this big with all the sheets of wood in it. And then, you know, you pull the sheets out and punch out the parts and build it. And it's like, you really don't get it until you see it, because a lot of people have said, oh, it's big, then they get it and they're like, wow, it's even bigger than I thought it was once I built it. I mean, I think this is like 28 inches long or something like that. I forget what the dimensions are on it, but I mean, it's really cool. It has a lot of detail. You know, the front car has the dragon mouth opening, and you know, it's pretty cool. He did a phenomenal job on it. I mean, we have some stuff that I wish I could show you that's just next level, that we think is gonna really blow people's minds. And we're actually deviating a little bit from coasters. There's something that people will get to see not too long that isn't a roller coaster. It's a coaster cutout. So
good things to come. Y'all are always innovating, and that's one thing that stands out to me. But the other piece that stands out is you don't just make a product, you make a product special. Like, you really put those fine touches on, like you're pointing out. It's those tiny touches that makes that really special. And then I've seen on social media that some people have taken what you created to the next level and have really made those their own, with their own special touches. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen your customers doing with your coaster cutouts.
I mean, like every day there's something on Instagram where somebody gets one of these and they hand paint it. And I mean, they look amazing. You know, I wish we could sell them painted. That would be really cool. But people have gotten very creative with them. I mean, there's one guy that's painting them and and then selling them to people. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of turning into, you know, what are you going to do? You're at home all day, and you know, I love it because I've always been a modeler my whole life. I always built models, and I see things going back to that a little bit. You know,
That's
people
exciting.
buying these things.
Living out your passion. I mean, you truly are actually making a career out of something you're passionate about as a hobby. What more can we dream of in life?
Well, yeah, I mean, CoasterDynamix was started just as a side gig with Mike and I. I mean, you know, Mike was designing coasters, and I had another business, and we're like, hey, let's build a roller coaster model. Like back in 2004, we did our Dragon, and you know, it was phenomenal at the time. It was just like, it still is. It was just groundbreaking, and I knew it had a lot of potential, and I felt that, you know, someday that would probably be what I did as my main business, just because it just had so much potential, you know, whether it's the toy market, the hobby market, amusement parks, whatever. And it's finally getting to that point where I spend the bulk of my time with CoasterDynamix, almost all my time, really.
That's exciting. And are you finding other places than amusement parks that are interested in these products? I think of hobby stores, places like that. Train enthusiasts could also be interested. Is that a market that's expanding for y'all?
So CDX is our toy line, and it's doing pretty well in the toy market. We've got some new rides. I think I mentioned in the last video some lower priced rides, and they're gaining a lot of popularity. they'll be released probably in April. You know, the standard CoasterDynamix stuff, we have a line of models called Classics, and it's a bunch of O-gauge train models, you know, like we do a tilt-a-whirl and a tumble bug and Ferris wheel and things like that. And we sell those, you know, into the O-gauge train market. We used to do the Comet, which was an HO model. And I mean, that was like our best selling model ever at the time, because that's such a big market. And then we have this, which is, you know, for the amusement park and coaster aficionados. And, you know, we're re-releasing the Dragon, and we have a lot of exciting potential things going on with that. So it's like we're kind of going in all these different directions. And then one of the things that we're talking about is trying to expand this line into maybe the toy or hobby market a little more. I mean, the coasters are a little too specialized. You know, when we show them to toy stores, they're kind of like, you know, somebody would really have to like roller coasters. And then of course we couldn't sell any branded ones. I mean, we could go to, you know, toy stores in Cleveland and sell Cedar Point stuff probably all day, but we were not allowed to do that. Or go down to Orlando and sell Universal stuff or Disney stuff or whatever. But we would have to sell just, you know, a nondescript coaster, and there's just really no demand for that. So we're hoping to branch out into different things that might have a broader appeal. And I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I mean, we were just talking. I was up late last night talking to Dan and Matt. You know, we're looking at like these marble roller coasters that you get that are laser cut, and they're not roller coasters. You know, they're just marble Rube Goldberg machines. You know, and we're like, you know, what if we did a marble roller coaster that is more like a roller coaster? And you know, just things like that. That's like really inside information right there.
I imagine y'all's brainstorming sessions are just really passionate. I mean, you love what you do. The roller coasters are so much fun. What could not be great about the conversations? So
yeah, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff that gets thrown out, because you throw just the craziest stuff out there, and maybe it's too crazy, but maybe part of it sticks or makes you think about, you know, because when you're trying to think of what can we do different, you have to just start throwing all kinds of stuff out there. And you know, we have a lot of options, to put it that way.
I just can't wait to see what comes from CoasterDynamix. I know exciting things are ahead that you will keep us intrigued and just having a great time. I love using our hands and doing something active. It's a great family activity to do this together. What is the age recommendation on the coaster cutouts?
We put 14 and up. I mean, you really have to be able to follow directions, and it's just the nature of some of the assemblies that the directions are pretty good. You know, they're all done in, you know, with like 3D software and everything like that. But sometimes you just can't get an angle on a certain assembly, and you have to like be a little intuitive, and you have to. It's just like nanocoasters. I mean, nanocoasters. Or it's just like Lego, really. I mean, there's assemblies where, you know, you build something and then you get 5 steps later, you're like, oh man, I forgot that part, or I didn't do it. You just have to be aware, you know, very careful when you assemble. Actually, when you assemble one of these, that's the hardest one. After that, there's so many commonalities, like how the seats go together, how the wheel bogies go together. It's usually something in the front end. Like if it has a strange angular front end, you have all these pieces but you know, 80% of the model, they're all very similar, you know, in how they're constructed. So we tried to keep some commonalities between the models, so that there was that familiarity when you went, you know, from one model to the other. Oh, I built this before. But we put 14 and up, and it just depends on somebody's modeling skills. You know, there's probably, you know, 8-10-year-olds that could build them, but you know, they might get frustrated. Some people might get frustrated with it. I mean, we have the same problem with CDX. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, I just had someone yesterday get with me about an issue that they had, and I was trying to explain to them what they had done in the assembly, and they just weren't having any of it. It was just it was a faulty product, and I'm like, you cut the rail too short, and you're trying to go from point A to point B, and you've already cut the rail. You shouldn't have cut the rail. You should have, and you're trying to say that in a nice way, and that was an adult that did that. So I would say it has more to do with the skill of the person than it does really the age. I mean, if you put, there's a company called U-Gears that makes a lot of stuff like this. And I don't know what their age range is, but if you built one of those models, these are probably easier.
That makes sense though, because different people have different skill sets and different ways of looking things. If you have a more engineering mind, it's going to be easier to assemble it to be able to picture the end product.
Right. I mean, you look at the instructions, and some people look at the instructions and it's intimidating. Some people look at the instructions and they're just like, oh, this looks fun. So, it just depends on the person. It's really not that hard to assemble. The thing about the wooden models is, you can assemble them, or you can snap it together and unsnap it, snap it together, unsnap it a few times. But if you do it too much, you're going to start, messing with the wood. The wood may start to bend, or the tabs may collapse or something like that if you did it too much. But then all you'd have to do is just glue it,
Okay.
if something didn't fit right. So you haven't ruined the model if you have to take it apart and then reconfigure it. So.
That's good to know. Well, Jack, y'all are doing amazing things with CoasterDynamix. Anything else that we didn't chat about that you'd like to share?
I mean, this doesn't really have anything to do with Mid-Atlantic, but we've got a lot more models that are coming out for Europe.
Oh.
We have someone in Europe now that's sort of acting as a rep that has communication with the parks. So you'll start seeing rides available more and more over in Europe. And hopefully they have a web store so they can ship over here, because I'm sure some of these people are going to want over here because they're pretty neat rides.
We definitely are going to want those models over here too. And what a great expansion. We love to see some of these great coasters from Europe be able to come to our homes so that we can enjoy looking at the beauty of them every day. We love what you bring to us. Thank you, Jack, for bringing some creativity to the coaster world and all that CoasterDynamix does, and have offered some great activities, not just this pandemic, but going forward, some great activities that we can enjoy at home during the off season. Thanks for sharing a little bit about with Ace Mid-Atlantic today, and we look forward to seeing what more is to come in 2021. It sounds like you've got some fun stuff for us.
We do. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to interview me.
You're welcome. Always enjoy it.